Okay, so we left off with this foreshadowing coming. There's going to be a conflict with Montag going back to the Firehouse. And realistically, Beatty is the one with secret knowledge as well. And of course, Faber has that same secret knowledge. So it's kind of going to be a showdown between Beatty and Montag, but it's Faber and Montag together through the two-way radio in Montag's ear. So Faber had cautioned Montag, don't be so harsh with Mildred and her friends. They're ignorant. They need enlightenment. You were like them before. But we're going to see something quite different with Beatty, because Beatty has this knowledge, and yet he still maintains the system of control for the government and believes, like he said to the first lady whose house they burned and she sacrificed herself, Beatty believes that the books are like a Tower of Babel, which means confusion, that the books essentially equal confusion. Tower of Babel means confusion. So we'll see a bit of a showdown coming up here. So Montag's got Faber in his ear, and he gets to the Firehouse, and the mechanical hound is actually gone. Like he's out, or it rather is out somewhere. So that's a bit normal, because it could be on a call for another burning or looking up, whatever reports people are reporting, maybe people with books. But since we know Montag has books, and we know earlier that there was like the hound sniffing around his house kind of in the background hinted at, this should kind of be like, uh-oh, alarm bells. Where's the mechanical hound? It's out. So Montag goes up the fire pole, ends up arriving. Beatty stood near the drop hole waiting, but with his back turned as if he were not waiting. "Well," he said to the men playing cards, "here comes a very strange beast, which in all tongues is called a fool." Here's a mention of all tongues, all languages. Again, that's another Tower of Babel reference, because that's where God confuses the languages of the people. And another name for that incident is called the confusion of tongues. Well, that's a famous way to talk about that scene. So Beatty seems to be associating Montag with this confusion and calling that confusion foolishness, calls him a fool. He put his hand to one side, palm up, for a gift. Montag put the book in it. Without even glancing at the title, Beatty tossed the book into the trash basket and lit a cigarette. "Who are a little wise, the best fools be. Welcome back, Montag. I hope you'll be staying with us now that your fever is done and your sickness is over. Sit in for a hand of poker?" Notice Beatty, he uses a lot of quotes and allusions. So he's quoting famous texts. They sat and the cards were dealt. In Beatty's sight, Montag felt the guilt of his hands. His fingers were like ferrets that had done some evil and now never rested, always stirred and picked and hid in pockets, moving from under Beatty's alcohol-flamed stare. If Beatty so much as breathed on them, Montag felt that his hands might wither, turn over on their sides, and never be shocked to life again. They would be buried the rest of his life in his coat sleeves, forgotten. But these were the hands that had acted on their own, no part of him. Here was where the conscience first manifested itself to snatch books, dart off with Job and Ruth and Willie Shakespeare, and now, in the Firehouse, These hands seemed gloved with blood. Twice in half an hour, Montag had to rise from the game and go to the latrine to wash his hands. When he came back, he hid his hands under the table. So notice Montag is manifesting a lot of guilt here. And where symbolically his hands are the symbol of guilt in this case. Beatty laughed. Let's have your hands in sight, Montag. Not that we don't trust you, understand, but they all laughed. Well, said Beatty, the crisis is past and all is well. The sheep returns to the fold. We're all sheep who have strayed at times. Truth is truth to the end of reckoning, we've cried. They are never alone that are accompanied with noble thoughts, we've shouted to ourselves. Sweet food of sweetly uttered knowledge, Sir Philip Sidney said. But on the other hand, words are like leaves, and where they most abound, much fruit of sense beneath is rarely found. Alexander Pope. What do you think of that? I don't know. Careful, whispered Faber, living in another world, far away. Or this, a little learning is a dangerous thing. Drink deep or taste not the Pierian spring. There shallow draughts intoxicate the brain, and drinking largely sobers us again. Pope, same essay. Where does that put you? Montag bit his lip. Actually, ironically, Beatty is quoting a lot of poetry here. And notice he quotes contradictory statements from different texts. So he's trying to show that books contradict each other, that there's conflict and confusion amongst the poets that he's quoting. He's quoting things, selecting things that conflict on purpose to try to confuse Montag. Montag bit his lip. I'll tell you, said Beatty, smiling at his cards. That made you for a little while a drunkard. Read a few lines and off you go over the cliff. Bang! You're ready to blow up the world, chop off heads, knock down women and children, destroy authority. I know, I've been through it all. I'm all right, said Montag nervously. Stop blushing, I'm not needling, really I'm not. Do you know, I had a dream an hour ago. I lay down for a cat nap, and in this dream you and I, Montag, got into a furious debate on books. You towered with rage, yelled quotes at me. I calmly parried every thrust. Power, I said, and you, quoting Dr. Johnson, said, knowledge is more than equivalent to force. And I said, well, Dr. Johnson also said, dear boy, that he is no wise man that will quit a certainty for an uncertainty. Stick with the firemen, Montag. All else is dreary chaos. So again, Montag is being warned that chaos, confusion come from the books. And he's quoting the same author now twice, two contradictory statements from the same author, trying to sort of show double chaos. Don't listen, whispered Faber. He's trying to confuse. He's slippery. Watch out. Beatty chuckled. And you said, quoting, truth will come to light, murder will not be hid long. And I cried in good humor, oh God, he speaks only of his horse. And the devil can cite scripture for his purpose. And you yelled, this age thinks better of a gilded fool than of a threadbare saint in wisdom's school. And I whispered gently, the dignity of truth is lost with much protesting. And you screamed, carcasses bleed at the sight of a murderer. And I said, patting your hand, what? Do I give you trench mouth? And you shrieked, knowledge is power, and a dwarf on giant shoulders is the furthest of the two. And I summed my side up with rare serenity in the folly of mistaking a metaphor for a proof, a torrent of verbiage for a spring of capital truths, and oneself as an oracle is inborn in us, Mr. Valery once said. All of these are quotes, right? Notice the quotation marks. Okay, so this double quotation is Beatty speaking, right? But then the smaller quotations, he's quoting other famous texts. Montag's head whirled sickeningly. He felt beaten unmercifully on the brow. Eyes, nose, lips, chin, on shoulders, on upflailing arms. He wanted to yell, "No, shut up, you're confusing things, stop it." Beatty's graceful fingers thrust out to seize his wrist. "God, what a pulse! I've got you going, have I, Montag? Your pulse sounds like the day after the war. Everything but sirens and bells. Shall I talk some more? I like your look of panic, Swahili, Indian, English, lit. I speak them all, a kind of excellent dumb discourse, Willie." "Montag, hold on." The moth brushed Montag's ear. "He's muddying the waters." "Oh, you were scared silly," said Beatty, "for I was doing a terrible thing in using the very books you clung to rebut you on every hand, on every point. What traitors books can be. You think they're backing you up, and they turn on you. Others can use them too, and there you are, lost in the middle of the moor in a great welter of nouns and verbs and adjectives. And at the very end of my dream, along I came with the salamander and said, 'Going my way?' And you got in, and we drove back to the Firehouse, and beatific silence all dwindled away to peace." Beatty let Montag's wrist go, let the hand slump limply on the table. "All's well that is well in the end." Silence. Montag sat like a carved white stone. The echo of the final hammer on his skull died slowly away into the black cavern where Faber waited for the echoes to subside. And then when the startled dust had settled down upon Montag's mind, Faber began softly, "All right, he's had his say, you must take it in. I'll say my say too in the next few hours, and you'll take it in, and you'll try to judge them and make your decision as to which way to jump or fall. But I want it to be your decision, not mine, and not the captain's. But remember that the captain belongs to the most dangerous enemy of truth and freedom, the solid, unmoving cattle of the majority. Oh God, the terrible tyranny of the majority. We all have our harps to play, and it's up to you now to know with which ear you'll listen. So who's in the majority now? Remember, the minority not offending the minorities had been part of the slippery slope decline into the dystopian society. Now, those who are afraid of knowledge and who are foolish and ignorant are the majority, and he's saying Beatty is part of that. But as we're going to see in a moment, things get a little trickier because they're going to get a call. Montag opened his mouth to answer Faber and was saved this error in the presence of others when the station bell rang. So they're going to get a call to go. Alarm voice in the ceiling chanted. There was a tacking sound as the alarm report telephone typed out the address across the room. Captain Beatty, his poker cards in one pink hand, walked with exaggerated slowness to the phone and ripped out the address when the report was finished. He glanced perfunctorily at it and shoved it in his pocket. Came back down and sat down. The others looked at him. "It can wait exactly 40 seconds while I take all the money away from you," said Beatty happily. Montag put his cards down. "Tired, Montag, going out of this game?" "Yes." "Hold on. Well, come to think of it, we can finish this hand later. Just leave your cards face down and hustle the equipment. On the double now." And Beatty rose up again. "Montag, you don't look well. I'd hate to think you were coming down with another fever." "I'll be all right." "You'll be fine. This is a special case. Come on, jump for it." They leapt into the air and clutched the brass pole as if it were the last vantage point above a tidal wave passing below, and then the brass pole, to their dismay, slid them down into darkness, into the blast and cough and suction of the gaseous dragon roaring to life. And so they thunder around the corner, and where do they end up? They end up at Montag's own house. We've stopped in front of my house. And that leaves us hanging for the next section.